and video recorded for the public. So we have an agenda this evening that everybody received. Can I just have a motion to accept the agenda unless there's some issues with it? Kevin, seconder. Jason? Okay, all in favor? Great, okay. We have one set of minutes to approve this evening. Now, there was two corrections made on those minutes late in the day here. So we need to have a motion to accept it with the corrections. There was just some clerical errors. I was both attending and absent. I should be marked as attending, and Ken Shimuzu was marked as in attendance when he was actually absent. So that correction will be made. So if I could have a motion from somebody to move that the minutes be accepted with those two corrections. Okay, Kevin, seconder. Hector, all in favor? Great. Okay, excellent. All right, we've got two presentations this evening. The first one is for a property at Nicholl Street, and City Planner Caleb Horn will introduce it. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The first item on tonight's agenda is development permit application number DP 1318 for three properties on Nicholl Street, 427, 449, and 455. The property is zoned Community Corridor, the Core 3 zone, and the relevant design guidelines are the general DPA design guidelines, as well as the South End Urban Design Framework and Guidelines. The proposed development is a four-story multifamily residential building with 35 dwelling units, as well as an under the building parking structure. There is one variance requested, and that is to vary the required parking from 47 stalls to 35 stalls. Thank you.
Okay, the applicant can go ahead. Who's presenting this evening?
Good evening. I'll be presenting. Sorry.
And you can go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready.
Sure. My name is Avishai. I'm an architect. I work for Stantec from Victoria. I'll be presenting this application. Let's start with existing conditions. I think that will be the most appropriate. As per Google Street View, can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. So this is Nicholl Street, looking north. These are the three residential lots. As we can see, at least from 2009, but I'm guessing it's been far longer than this. The property has been vacant. It changed hands a number of times. Development was started and stopped. Applications were made and abandoned along the years. We hope to change all this. Let's see now. Some pictures. This is from August. The area is in a pretty rough shape. There's all sorts of bylaw infringements from neighboring properties in the laneway, dumping, trespassing. It's become pretty gross at this point. Hopefully, this is gone by now.
It's still showing the Street View, Google Street View for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll stop and reshare. Okay. There we go. Yes. So this is images of the laneway. It's overgrown, and again, there's trespassing and there's dumping in the area. It's just what happens with these types of areas. Okay, so on to nicer things. I will share. So, the development permit application, as it's been submitted to the city. This is a view of Nickel Street. We have four stories, 35 residential units. They are aimed for below market rentals. There's agreements with the city about that. This is our survey, and this is our site plan. We tried to accommodate as many as previous comments from recent previous development permit applications as to the site and accessibility around the site. On the south edge of the site, we're proposing a common walkway that would be a right-of-way along the building, basically connecting Nickel Street and the laneway. This is something that doesn't exist on either side of the property, all the way to the intersections. Street side trees are existing. Right now they're buried into the pavement, but they're going to be released from the pavement and into a more nicer growing environment, landscape the street side. The first floor units are ground oriented with access directly to the street. This is here at the south edge is the lobby, and on the first floor we have a amenity space. Amenity space with garden beds to the benefit of the residents. This here is the arcade level, which is at grade with the laneway at the back. Here is the core and services of the building, and all the way to the north side of the parkade is from this line to the right, it's exposed parking, and from this line to the left, it's under the building parking, gated. Obviously, we have two main access points along the lane and an additional one for garbage. I'll just zoom in here briefly. One of the things that determine the size and shape of the parkade is the MOTI setback, 4.5 meters from the from the property line, basically for Nickel Street, and that's a pretty hard setback. So that informed a lot of our work around at grade here. Quickly go through the floor plans. Floor plans are basically identical. All 35 units, unit types. You got studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. 33 square meter units, 8 1-bedroom units, 4 1+ den, 3 1+ den, 8 2 beds, and 4 2+ dens. Accessible. We have 4 accessible units, 1 in each floor, and we have 4 accessible full-size parking spots to accommodate these units. On the first floor, obviously, it's it's ground oriented, and it's as you can see, it's as wide, as generous, and compliant as possibly can be for this type of unit. Onward to the exterior. The cladding and finishes are cement boards, panels, and planks. panels and planks, a combination of panels and planks and exposed concrete, coupled with the generous landscaping. So, some views. This is elevation west towards Nichols Street. This is elevation from the north property lot. An east elevation towards the laneway with the access gates, garbage enclosure, PMT, and here we have the communal walkway. South elevation and building sections. Well, I don't feel like it's completely relevant. And okay, I'll just address one last thing. The FSR for this is achieved through compliance with Tier 2 Schedule D. So we are compliant and well above the requirements for this development. We're providing car share, 50% electric parking spots, scooter and motorcycle parking. We're exceeding the BC Energy Step Code, Step Code 3. We're exceeding that. Permeable surface over 50%. 10% of the units are accessible. There are garden beds for the benefit of the residents, and there is a commitment by the developer for below market rental units. I think that covers what we have. Thank you. I think Chris Midgley say something about the landscaping?
For sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Everyone can hear me fine? Okay. Shall I share my screen?
Yep. Go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. Let's just make sure I've got it here. That's the one right here. So, sorry, just bear with me for just a moment. So, yes, thank you. So, just regarding the landscape, I think Abby did touch on a few of the elements. I'll just run through our rationale. So, borrowing our inspiration from the South End Urban Design Guidelines and Framework, recognizing Nichols Street's the goal or the aspiration from the city of Nanaimo to achieve sort of a high street concept. The landscape design responds to this with refined hardscaping along the streetscape here. We've created zones for seating. We think that they're utilizing spaces that would otherwise be covering parking, or they're currently covering parking. So it's an ideal kind of plaza space with accessible access from the residences themselves. We've got a lush sort of layered planting of indigenous and ornamental species, creating a private public divide between the streetscape and the private patios along the front of the residence. We've got a fairly transparent sort of idea for a black metal picket fence, replicating a fence that you would see just a little bit down the road. There's a similar fence on a similar scale to this building, just a simple black picket fence to further emphasize that public-private distinction without creating an enormous barrier. We've got illuminated sort of entries into each of these patios. So there's some lighting to complement the landscaping there. As Abby pointed out, we're sort of rehabilitating this boulevard strip here with planting and street trees to sort of again maintain the trees that are there. So we're thankful and happy to be able to have mature trees on site that we can retain. So that basically captures the front side of the building. We've integrated seating into seat walls wherever we can, just to create an informal gathering space, those kinds of elements. And again, looking at this community gathering space, maintaining there's some great views out to the Strait, Salish Sea to the east. So using that and orienting the benches such that they're not staring directly into a neighboring property. They're sort of aimed away from adjacent properties. Now at the rear of the building, we've maximized the amount of landscaping between parking using permeable landscaping as part of the goal with this project to have as much permeable, 50% of the site as permeable. So we've utilized the overhang areas for car parking to provide some green infrastructure benefits, replicating the fencing that currently exists throughout the lane. There's a security reality, as well as trying to mitigate any impacts of headlights in the parking zones with cedar board fencing along this back rear. Again, it's a standard approach that you see throughout this lane, and has that benefited the benefit of additional a little bit of security, given some of the realities that we're facing these days, and as well as mitigating some of those headlights as vehicles kind of move in and out from below the building. I think that generally, I'm not going to go through the details, but that generally captures the approach that we're taking. We've got a constrained site with a lot of architecture occupying the site, and we're doing creating as lush and robust a landscape as we can with seeding and indigenous species within the space that we have for that. So I'll leave it at that and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Chris? Does your team have some more there, Abby?
No, that's what we have. I'll comment on the parking. I think that's the kind of most outstanding item that we have. The parking situation. We require a reduction of 12 parking spots, a variance for reduction of 12 parking spots. The site is very, very constrained in that regard. There's very little that can be fit, especially when you take that 4.5 meters setback dedicated to the roadway. The design for the parkade prioritized maximizing the number of stalls rather than access points. We would have been happy to see less access points into the building from the laneway, but unfortunately that reduces dramatically the remaining number of remaining parking stalls, and I think that's that from our perspective that governs. That's all I had to say on that regard.
Great, thank you. Do any of the panel members have some questions to ask of the city staff at this point? Hillary, go ahead. You need some sound.
There.
That's it. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, it's like, what was my question? The question with the garden beds for residents, does that mean like garden space for them to enjoy, or actual like garden space that they can plant their own stuff in?
Are you questioning the staff or the applicant?
I guess that's technically a applicant question, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, go ahead. Okay, you've asked it. So.
I think the garden beds can definitely be utilized for gardening, if there is a motivation from the the residents.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's an interesting part to hear about. Thank you.
Did you want to go ahead and give your comments on the project right now, Hillary, or do you want to wait?
Sure. As much as I do love to piggyback off other people's comments and be like, yeah, that was a great comment, I can try to go first. Yeah, I really am excited to see this project. I think it's the great kind of density that we're looking for along that Nickel Street corridor. Love the below market rate rental commitment. And I really like the ground oriented units, and really happy to see that 4 of the units in the building are meant to be accessible units, so I think that's great. Exceeding the energy step code, heck yeah. With the garden beds, I was wondering if like a raised garden bed might be possible to enable people who have mobility challenges to use that garden space without having to like bend down to ground level. It looks like maybe that might be possible with that area. And yeah, I think the landscape design looks good. The 50% permeable area is obviously the goal, and nice to see the indigenous species included in the planting plan. So yeah, overall I think it just looks really lovely and will be a nice addition to the Nickel corridor.
Great, thanks, Hillary. Jason, would you like to go?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. Nice project. I salute your use of color. A lot of architectural projects these days seem to shirk away from specifying things up beyond grays and whites and blacks. So I appreciate that a lot. Most of my comments or questions was around the parking and that kind of north garden area, the amenity space. Just looking at the parking, and obviously you need the 12 stall variance. Has there been some thought of, like, is the parking assigned? Is it does it get assigned to certain units? Is it the studio suites that will go without a parking stall? What is the anticipation for that?
To be honest, we haven't drilled down to that level. Obviously, accessible goes to accessible. I think that's more of a management, building management question. I can't really comment on that. Swear on if you'd like to.
Yeah. No. Okay, that's fine. I was just curious how that was going to be distributed, I guess, is one of my. But otherwise, yeah, I see you've literally packed as many stalls onto the site as you can. I have some concerns around, on the north aisle being able, like those 2 end stalls are going to be a little bit difficult to get out of and to get out of the parking. But I understand that the numbers game is kind of driving some of those decisions, and including the one that's across from the accessible stalls. Getting out of that one is going to be pretty challenging. So I'm a little concerned about some of that, but understand that the motivation was to pack as many stalls onto the site as possible. For the amenity garden to the northwest, I had a question about the accessibility of that space as well. How do building residents access that space? Looks like they could go through the stair, and is that level, or do they have to go out to the street and down?
No, it's all level. First of all, I'll just comment on the parking. We are still trying to better the design of the parkade as much as possible. Maybe we can switch to smaller stalls at the ends that might alleviate some of the pressure. But we'll have to figure out a more accurate mix. As for this, I'll just zoom in. Now this is level with the floor level, with the floor level 1, and exit through the corridor, through the stair and out to the garden, and it slopes up to the street, but it's basically level with everything else.
Okay, and there's no stairs you have to navigate to get down to it. Okay.
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was a set of stairs or not, so that's good. I just wanted to make sure that easily accessible, particularly with the inclusion of the accessible units. So,
Yes.
okay. And then otherwise, my only other comment was particularly for the landscaping was located on the rear of the property for the majority. I feel like I appreciate that you've added some trees to the back area. It just seems a bit anemic, and I would maybe consider some opportunities for additional plantings. And I know, again, parking is kind of driving the decision making here, but it would be great if there are some additional opportunities to soften that edge, particularly in a lane environment. I know it's rare, but it would be, in this particular instance, I think it would be pretty nice. Otherwise, I don't have any issues with the project. Like I said, I think the massing and the choice of colors is quite nice. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jason. Abby, if you don't mind, please stop sharing your screen. I have a hard time seeing the panel without. Okay, great. Thank you. Hector, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, as you say, I think it's a great project, great density. I think my only concern, and maybe that's more a question for both the architect and maybe the city of Nanaimo. What's going on with that staircase going on the south of the building? I think it's a great idea to connect the link with the main road in Nickel Street. Is there any concerns about like transient population making camp in that stair and becoming an issue for the future tenants of the building?
You want city staff to answer that, or the?
Yeah, probably is a city staff question. Yeah.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, we generally do try to encourage mid-block connections for active transportation where possible. This specific connection, staff haven't commented on at this time. It's currently under review by our transportation and parks departments to see if it is something we would accept at this location. Typically, our pedestrian connections would not have a staircase, so I'm unsure yet if it's where we'll land on this one. It may just end up having to be a private staircase, but it's something that we're currently reviewing, and we don't have a comment on it at this time.
Caleb.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I think it's worth looking at it. It's very narrow. I think I saw it on the drawings, it's like 1.5 meters.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not great when it's like so tight. I mean, it's a 4-story building. Yeah, that's my main concern about that staircase. So yeah, that's my only comment. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hector. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Avishai and Chris, for your presentations. First question is for staff. Caleb, regarding building setbacks required for this property, there's underground parking. Is it a permitted encroachment into the sides and the front setback?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, it is permitted to encroach into the front yard setback up to 1.8 meters from a front property line, with the caveat in this case being that Nickel Street is not under the jurisdiction of the city of Nanaimo. It's a provincial Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure road, so they'll often have additional setbacks beyond the city setbacks. And in terms of the side yard, that's correct. Their underground parking can go up to the side property lines, but where exposed above grade, we do apply building setbacks. So I think there still are some grading questions that staff will be working out with the applicant when it comes to, I think, the north property line here, where the parkade structure is abutting the property line, whether that can be addressed through manipulating the grade, or if that is in fact possibly another variance that may be identified through the review process. We're not sure yet.
And the front setback, what the applicant is proposing, the applicant could extend the parking closer towards the street than what he's proposed.
It would require, my understanding is that it would require MODI approval if they wanted to go closer than that. The city zoning would allow it to go up to 1.8 meters, but because that that's Modi on the other side of that property line. They would
Yeah.
have to sign off on anything close, on anything that close.
Yeah, so what the applicant is proposing is the closest without going to them. Is that correct? Or are they
Yes.
encroaching?
Yes, no,
'Cause
we're
it's
at
a 6.
4.5 meters, which is the Moti
Okay.
setback.
And then Caleb, the side setbacks, 1's 0, and 1 is 3 meters. Is that correct? As the minimums?
That's correct. Yeah.
And it could be either or. One, it doesn't have to be the north or the south that's 0 and 3 meters. They can reverse them.
Yeah, through the chair, the property owner or applicant would have the option of choosing which is side yard 1 and side yard 2. Typically, if there's already been a development on one side that's gone to the 0 lot line, they'll tend to match that. But in this
Okay.
case, neither property has gone to the 0 lot line.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. The rest of my questions are for the applicant. Very nice presentation. Obviously, anything along the Nicholl Street and Halliburton corridors or something that's really, really well, we need them drastically to help restore and get that area more revitalized. And I'm really looking forward to projects like this to be continually built along this corridor. Regarding the siting, and this kind of continues on what I was talking to Caleb about. The building, there's an existing building on the north property that's 10 inches from the property line. How are you going to deal with that building when you're putting a 0 lot line parkade up against that property line? That'll be 10 inches away from it.
That's at the north?
Yeah, there's an existing house that on the survey plan that you enclosed is 10 inches or 0.27 meters from the property line on Williamson and Associates survey plan. That would be the property directly to the north.
Yes. We have not addressed that issue as of
Yeah,
yet.
because that's going to be a challenge. I'm not sure how it would be feasible to excavate and shore up along an excavational cut when the building's that close. So I'll leave it at that for you. Hopefully it doesn't create any problems, but I'm not sure how that could really be addressed when it's that close. And I'm assuming that's the foundation, not the roof overhang, which could possibly, the roof of that property could be currently extending over into your property. So it's something you might want to check out. Aside from that, regarding the siting, did you consider mirroring the plan so that the two things, the amenity outdoor space gets located to the south side to get more southern sun, and also puts the entry side of the building on the north side closer to downtown?
We have played around with this, and as in a lot of cases, it's the parking that drives a lot of these things. And since the parking is at such a premium, where the property where the lot lines basically splay out to the east, that widening, that's where we want to that's where we want to capitalize on the most space for the most parking. Flipping it is an option, but it reduces dramatically the amount of parking that can be achieved.
But you have zero property lines on both the north and the south. So I'm and with the amount of, if you moved all the stairs and everything to the north side and reversed everything, wouldn't it all be the same essentially?
It would be close to the same, but it ends up limiting the amount drastically.
Yeah, it's something that you might, I just want to put it in there and maybe investigate that and maybe even consider it, because if you can get, the building the amenity space being on the north side will not capture a lot of sun, especially if you want to use it for a garden. And if you do mirror that, and also I would support any sort of variance that you would require through the provincial government. Obviously, it's not a city one, but investigate encroaching further into the front setback with the underground parking to achieve more parking spaces. I'm not sure if there's going to be any issues with the provincial government, but maybe that's something you might want to investigate. The underground parking program that you have, did you look at just having one entrance coming into it and seeing if that could create less of a parking variance?
Because the lot is very shallow, it's side entries, like perpendicular parking spots are the most efficient way.
Okay.
We've went through a number of iterations, and we always, if you start connecting the lanes or doing like a L shape, you are basically losing a lot of in between spaces, which are not connected inside and out.
Okay, yeah, because obviously you spend a lot more time on this than me, but if there's a way, even by potentially encroaching further into that provincial front setback with your underground parking, if there's a way that you can eliminate one of those entrances and be a way to reduce the 12 parking variance, it's something that I would recommend that you probably look at and see if there's a solution that might 12 parking stalls for variance is quite a bit. And even though this is fairly close to downtown, there might be a way for you to investigate to see if that can work. Obviously, the closer you get to the front would affect the trees you put in on your front boulevard, because you can't have trees over an underground parking, at least substantial trees. But if you can check that out, and also mirroring, look at the possibility of mirroring the building to get the amenity space to the south side and the entry closer to the downtown side. I think those would be my recommendations for that. The bike storage that's right beside the entrance, the temporary bikes, is that covered by a roof structure? The bikes that are right by the main entry. I think you show, Chris shows some bikes there. I'm not sure if Chris knows, or you know.
I definitely know where the bikes are. I'm not 100% certain on the roof overhang, Avi. Actually, yes, I believe it is. It is under roof. Covered. Sorry, I do. Yes, I recall that. Sorry.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
That's good. And the staff made a comment about the roof line, and Abby, maybe you can you have that strong material that you have creating a frame around some of the areas on the front elevation. Did you look at any?
Can I share the screen?
Please.
Just so
you have the 3D rendering there of the from the street. And I wonder if you have that really nice, I'm not sure what type of panel you have, that the framed elements along the first 3 floors. It's almost like what type of material is that?
This is the charcoal gray.
Charcoal gray. Yeah, did you look at using that along the roof lines, and maybe with the same depth or same panel of that as an option, instead of having the same cladding from the siding on the walls carrying up onto the large fascia? Or did you look at any other options for that?
We played around with a number of things. I just tried to shy away from a lot of dark paneling and cladding. I know it's really popular, and it's gray on gray when it's gray outside. I try to move away from that, but that's definitely an option we can look at.
Yeah, I'll put it in there. Just looking at ways, look at ways to strengthen the fascia, the fascia. And if anybody disagrees with me and wants to jump in on that and comment on that, I would recommend that. Other than that, parking access program. That's pretty well it. I really like the project. I like the look of it, and it just some of those things I think you need to investigate. I'm not sure if I would at this point in time support that much of a parking variance personally, especially if there are solutions that you might be able to look at to increase the amount of parking stalls. And aside from that, I hope this project goes ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So that leaves me. Don't have a whole lot to add. First of all, I'd like to compliment you on a lovely looking project that I think would be, again, a great addition along Nicholl Street.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy to see the addition of accessible units in there, because it's a great location for that, for accessibility. I also like the idea of the amenity space. Really nice design there for sort of hanging out and walking around, and then having the gardens. And I would sort of reiterate Hillary's comment of maybe having raised garden beds that might be useful to people who who are wheelchair bound. Also, I would concur with Jason's comment about trying to add more planting to the back in some way. I know it's permeable surfaces, but it does look rather bleak back there. I think anything you can, small shrubs or whatever in between the parking spots or something, and some trees, that would really help wherever you can fit them. I'm also concerned, like Hector is, about that walkway on the side, if that is open to the public. I spent a lot of time downtown, and I think you probably find very quickly there'll be people using them for doing drugs and that kind of thing. And I think that would be problematic. So that's something, though, it sounds like you have to work out with the city anyway, and you may want to be able to secure that. Will there also be a gate or some sort of security blocking off the amenity area as well? Is that from the street?
It's possible, but these gates, it's not like a 8-foot gates, it's pickets. So it's so the gate would be there, but it doesn't make it it's for the kids not running into the street more than to keep away people if they really want to come in.
No, I realize that. I think even a small gate, just like a walk along the waterfronts, for example, some of the condo projects that just have a small gate, I think it just indicates this area is private. So if you end up going into it, you're out of place. But if it's wide open and you can walk through, I think you'll find that there's people in there pretty quickly. So
absolutely.
Yeah. My only other concern on the building itself, on the back on the south side balcony, it looked like it was uncovered. Is that the case, or am I looking at the plans wrong? Every other balcony looked like it had some sort of weather protection over it from the balcony above or the roof. That one balcony, it might have been shared as well. It's sort of on the back side, the laneway side on the south corner.
Okay, I'll just pull it up because I'm not sure.
Just on the first floor, I think it was.
On the first floor. Oh yes, it's basically access on top of the it's additional roof access on top of the garbage enclosure.
Oh, it's not a balcony then? Am I reading that wrong?
No, it is a balcony. Yes, it is a balcony, and it's not covered by the rest of the building. It's proud of the building.
Yeah. So if there's a way maybe I don't know if there's a way to add some sort of protection over that, because it'll other than on a sunny day, it's not going to be much use. It looked like a nice size balcony as well. So.
Yes, absolutely. We can look into that.
And then some of the balconies look like they were shared between units. Is that the case?
Yes, some of them are.
Yeah. And so how are you partitioning those for privacy?
And there are many ways to basically create there are off-the-shelf dividers, which are a screen, and at the ground level it can be a planter that basically separates them more physically, but in a lot of developments it's basically just a metal frame with glass or some sort of fencing.
Okay, so there will be some sort of division there. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, look forward to seeing a project finally happen on that property. I've driven by there lots of times and thought, when is somebody going to build something there? It's such a perfect place with the views and everything as well. So great. Okay. So panel members, we need to look at what our recommendations are here. First of all, we had consider raised garden beds in the amenity space. Consider ways to add additional plantings to the back parking lot. Consider, now this, Kevin, you might need to help with that. Consider reversing the north-south orientation of the siding of the building. Would that make sense, or do you want to phrase that a different way? Or just consider.
Yeah, I guess you're pretty much mirroring or reversing the plan and the parking, reversing it. So yeah, so from north, I guess from north to south or whatever. I think they understand what I mean by it. To get the amenity space on the south side of the property and the entry to the north side.
And did you want another recommendation regarding the?
Yeah, there's a recommendation. I think the applicant needs to look at the parking layout and the program of it to see if there are ways to increase the amount of parking that is available, and that includes potentially encroaching into the front setback with the underground parking, and possibly eliminating one of the driving entrances to the parkade. And I certainly welcome other panel members' input on that. I don't think I'm missing anything with that. I think it's something 12 stalls is something that is quite a variance, and we're hearing more and more from people about variances that's substantial. So,
right. Does anybody else from the panel want to chime in on that recommendation? Jason?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I agree. I think the variance of 12 stalls is pretty significant. So anything they can do to try to mitigate that and bring that number just as small as possible, whether it's flipping it, I think as Avi was saying, I think flipping it comes with challenges of its own, but exploring ways to push into that setback, understanding that you're engaging at a provincial level instead of at a municipal level. But I agree, some further exploration around reducing the amount of stalls. Yeah.
Okay, great. And the last one I had was again from Kevin. Consider ways to visually. Oh, sorry, and I agreed one too. Consider ways to visually strengthen the fascia. Does that make sense? Need your mic?
Sorry. Yeah. The probably instead of the fascia, you can say the roof line.
Oh, okay, the roof line. And I was adding, consider covering providing weather protection over the back balcony on the first floor. So that leaves us, that's 6 recommendations. And then I'm not sure what you want to do about we'd support the variance if they can find out, if they can consider the other ways of.
Madam Chair, before we talk about that, I just got a flash on my screen from Kate Stefiak asking if the landscape architect, Chris, could comment on the raised beds recommendation. Chris, did you want to comment? Kate just flashed something on the screen, so I just wondered if it's something that I'm not sure if Chris got a chance to even comment on it.
Yes, would you like to comment on that, Chris?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting the flow there in the process. So I do want to respond to the question slash comment on raised beds. So looking at the planters along the front entry that are essentially dividing the ground-oriented units from the public space, they are raised. I mean, they're raised planters. They need to be in order to accommodate the plants that we've proposed over a parkade. So they're not at grade. They're raised beds. So that's one clarification that I'd like to ensure that the panel understands when they're making their recommendations. The second aspect of that question, I acknowledge that there's a value and a need for community gardens within this portion of the community. However, I think that like vegetable gardens are not exactly an appropriate response along the streetscape here for a couple of reasons. There's a need to get the site planted at the time of occupancy. There's also other benefits that we're providing for biodiversity and other indigenous plantings and that kind of thing. There's a drought tolerance that we're incorporating, and you kind of lose that when you start to shift over to vegetable gardens. There's an equity question when there's only 4 units now that have community garden beds. I would suggest that if somebody wanted to grow herbs or other things, they could put it in a pot on their patio, or sneak in a little kale here and there, where they want to. Similarly, with the amenity space on the north side of the building or wherever it ends up, there's practical realities of a quote unquote active garden, like hose watering, shovels, hose. You've got irrigation lines that are going to be in there. It's just from a practical standpoint, there's some real challenges with saying we should grow food here. And I don't want to dismiss it out of hand, and I don't want to say that it's impossible, but I think in a reality, I think a vegetable garden is the appropriate response for some of these gardens. They have value. They're at sort of seat level, so they can be interacted with by people with mobility constraints. But I would encourage the city of Nanaimo to find an appropriate location for a community garden that serves the entire community.
Well put. Okay. Hillary, do you want to respond to that?
Sorry, and thank you for letting me speak.
No, I think right on. That makes sense to me. I think it's a fair point about the, vegetable gardening versus planting some herbs. So yeah, appreciate that clarification.
So shall we take this garden bed recommendation out? I think it's probably a good idea.
The need for more community garden space.
Yeah, we can fight for that instead. I agree with you, and I think in a rental building sometimes it's might be different in owner condos because the owners can decide how they want to manage it, but it may not happen in a rental building because the tenants might not be organized, and it'll become the manager's problem. So anyway, those are things for the owners to figure out. Okay, so that brings us down to 5 recommendations. I'll just go over them again, but I also wanted to go back to our parking variance and how we deal with that in this evening's meeting. Does anybody have any suggestions? Just put in our recommendations and leave the variance.
Well, we're not, as far as I'm aware, and Caleb can remind us about this, a few years ago, it was decided that we would not make, as a panel, any recommendations, whether it's supporting or not supporting anything relating to parking. And Caleb, if you want to.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. I think that was at one point in staff's recommendation, but I don't know if the panel heeded that recommendation or not. I think you've still made recommendations one way or another. So feel free to, but I just would remind the panel that there is a technical analysis that goes along with it, with our transportation department, along with the parking study provided by the applicant. So there's further review beyond just the form and character implications of a parking variance.
Well, I'd suggest we just leave the variance on. We won't say anything. We'll just pass it with our recommendations, which also include something about the parking. So shows our concerns, and I think that should probably suffice. So, okay, so just review those the recommendations again. So consider ways to add additional planting in the back parking lot. Consider reversing the north-south orientation of the siting of the building. Consider the parking program and see if there are ways to increase the amount of parking and possibly encroach on the front yard setback, or by eliminating one of the parking entryways. Consider ways to visually strengthen the roof line. Consider providing weather protection on the back balcony on the first floor. So does that sound good to everybody? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the presentation, the project as presented, with those 5 recommendations? Jason, seconded by Kevin. All in favor? Great. So thank you very much to the applicant, and good luck with the project. Great, thanks.
And I really hope there's no issues with that house to the north of the property being 10 inches from the property line. That could be disastrous if it's that close.
We will definitely look into that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a second presentation this evening on Christina Crescent, and this one will be introduced by City Planner Peyton Carter. Go ahead, Peyton.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Development permit application DP 1319 is for a ground-oriented multifamily residential development comprising of 20 buildings with a total of 30 units in single, detached, and duplex forms. The subject property is zoned low-density residential R6 and is designated as suburban neighborhood in city plan. The lot is partially located within the Pleasant Valley Rutherford neighborhood, east of the Nanaimo Parkway at the end of Christina Crescent. It's currently partially forested and sloped to the east with 2 streams and a wetland located on the lot. The subject property falls within Development Permit Area 1, 5, 7, and 8. There are no proposed variances for this development, and the General Development Permit Area Design Guidelines and the Nanaimo Parkway Design Guidelines apply to this development. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Okay, and who's presenting this evening from the applicants? Jason, okay. You need to turn on your mic. And then you can go ahead and share your screen if you'd like, okay?
Perfect, I will. Thank you. Thank you to the panel for hearing us tonight. As Peyton said, we are adjacent to the Parkway, and I'll share my screen and give you a little more information. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see a map of Google. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Geographical map, yep.
Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you. Okay, so as Peyton mentioned, the project is adjacent to the Nanaimo Parkway and close to Brennan Lake up here. It's currently sloped site and currently undeveloped. And so you can see adjacent developments on the water side of Brennan that are residential in nature and kind of single family homes. The property we're talking about tees off of Christina Crescent here. And so I'll share a site plan in a moment, but the new access road, which will be a civic road, will come in off Christina Crescent. And there's an existing kind of berm structure between the highway and the property, which will be extended. We're talking about phase 1 of this property in this meeting. So that's the kind of south portion of this property. There is, as Peyton mentioned, a riparian stream through the property that cuts towards the lake, and that'll be phase 2 back here. And so if we look at a site plan of our property, I'll just zoom out a little bit here. The new road that comes in off of Christina Crescent is this road here. And so it'll be a new civic road. This has already been gone through a subdivision with the city here. And so the kind of lightly grade trees are part of that initial subdivision plan to get the civic road constructed, an extension of the berm along the highway, and stormwater management, as well as tree planting along the new civic road. And so now this current application is dealing with phase 1 of development, which includes up to the edge of the stream and the riparian setback here. And so the colorful landscape where the trees are colored is within the developable area. And then as the trees get lightly grayed, the green trees are the existing ones in this riparian area, and then the black trees are new trees expanding that riparian area. And so we're talking about, as Peyton mentioned, a collection of single family and duplex dwellings. The first run of them, the first 18 homes, are accessed off of that new Civic Road. And so they all have driveways coming off of Christina Crescent. And then there's a private drive aisle that works its way up the slope to access the units at the back, so 19 through 30. And all the homes are designed as single family and duplexes. We've got visitor parking at the edge of the new turnoff to the Civic Road and bicycle parking throughout the projects. We've got some abide accessible parking and other ones throughout the project, so in various spots. The form of the buildings themselves are keeping with that single family nature. And so they've all got a variety of cladding colors, but the same cladding material. So we're trying to have some consistency, but allow for wayfinding and identity of individual units. And so this is the lower side Civic Road that we're seeing at the top here. And with that slope, the ones that face that Civic Road are all 2-story units with a slight walk up to the kitchen level at the back. As the slope gets more significant, we start to get some 3-story units. And so the ones at the back of the property start off with the garage down low, and then you work your way up to a kind of kitchen level that has a covered outdoor deck space that faces the highway, the parkway. And then all the units have that private outdoor backyard space that's off their kitchen level. The general material palette is kind of earthy and understated. Every unit has its own color. And so we're trying to use a palette of 6 colors throughout the 30 units in total. And each unit's a kind of solid color with a brick front garage. So we've got 3 colors of brick here. Every unit has accents of wood. So some wood columns and wood beams to support the covered patios. One of the staff comments we've received earlier this week was about weather protection for front entrances. So all units have been updated to include weather protection for all front entrances, which also gives us some additional beams and some projections at the front of the building to kind of add some interest. And so when you're walking down the street here, it really is a kind of residential scale development. It will be built over phases. So the plan is to start constructing the ones closest to the Christina Road turnoff as separate BP applications. So they'll be grouped in 4 or 5 buildings at one time, and then eventually get towards the back units and start building these 2-story units. I'd love to pass it over to the landscape team as well, unless there's any architectural questions at the moment. We've also got our 3D model here. We can fly you around if there's any specific questions on the actual design of the spaces or the flow out to backyards, those kind of questions.
You can move on to the landscape. Usually we just get the whole presentation and then we'll
okay.
go to the panel to ask questions, okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sign Panel. And I'd like to share my screen. Hang on a moment. Oh. Hang on. My apologies. Just a minute. Where did it go? 1 second. Okay. There we go. Okay. I trust you can see this first page. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So as Jason had pointed out, and I just want to reiterate, so that you can have a better understanding of how this project fits into the whole site. This is phase 1. And so with a previous application, the subdivision application, that's where we worked with putting together our tree management strategy and our riparian restoration. And so as Jason highlighted, we do have very extensive planting of trees, coniferous and deciduous, at a rate of 70% coniferous, 30% deciduous in the area along the Nanaimo Parkway and in the riparian area zone. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, even though it's not part of this part of the application, but I think it's helpful in understanding what we've done. So I'll just move right into the landscape plan here. And I'm just gonna, pardon me. Okay, I'll just leave it like this for now. So the landscape plan is working to try to fit into the original character of the site. There is still some nice firs that edge the property, but overall it was cleared some time ago, as you could see in the Google Earth. So we have brought back that kind of coniferous Doug forest sort of theme to the edges, where we start with the sort of entry planting, and then along it moves into our communal space, and then sort of all around we have these little pockets of forest that kind of creep in and tie the whole project together. And so our main feature, I think, of this site is our communal space, where we've tried to accommodate all users with informal natural play, open-ended opportunities for engaging with the landscape. We have some of our stormwater management, bioswale in that site, and also space for sitting and gathering and moving. And part of that is having this connective sort of communal path that starts at the entry of the site and moves up along behind the first collection of buildings and out again to our drive lane and then back out to the sidewalk. In addition to this, some of the things we were considering is we are on the edge of a sort of wildfire hazard area. So that's also one reason I didn't want to bring the coniferous trees too far into the site, kept them at the edge, because they're the edge up here, we sort of sit in this wildfire hazard area. And that is also partly part of our decision making around the fencing that we've included. We've shifted to using a metal kind of fencing that has become more common in our residential areas, and there's a lot more interesting options. So that's why we are proposing sort of that for our backyards and our separations. So every unit has their own backyard. We've left it quite open-ended for the residents to put their own mark. We have just ensured we have our landscape buffers and a little bit of planting for privacy and continuity. But we see, you know, over time, I'm sure if there are avid gardeners, these, you know, the grass area can evolve as it needs to. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now, and open to questions. I hope I can answer any questions as we move forward. And thank you.
Great, thanks, Kate.
Okay, now I have to.
Anybody have questions of staff before we get going on this? Nothing? Okay. Kevin, you want to get going first?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jason and Kate, for your presentation. Very nice project. I really don't have any major concerns about anything. I think regarding the siting of the building. And before that, I have no issue with there's no variances. Is that correct?
Correct. There's no variances.
Correct. There's no variances. Okay, good. And regarding the siting, I think Jason, you did a wonderful job running how you've arranged the buildings and branched off with the road coming off of Christina. I think it works. Everything works very well. I like the units, the form and character, the design of the units, and you use some materials and colors and your roof lines. I'm glad you created roof coverages over the entranceways, because that was one of the things that I was worried about. Other than that, the form and character and siting, everything's great. Landscape concept, Kate, I think you did a wonderful job. I love the communal path that runs through the site, and the pedestrian links, how you connected everything works very good. Regarding the conifers, and I listened to your rationale. What about like Serbian spruce and smaller trees? Did you consider those in your palette?
Yeah, and just as a reference, Kevin, we're planting 452 conifers over the whole site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but none within the constraints of the buildings, are there?
Yes, well, in the pockets, like we have this forest pockets where I have firs and pines, and I have the Serbian spruce as well.
Okay, because I didn't see them on your palette, did I? Yeah, I didn't see anything amongst the palette of your where the houses are. I thought it's only on the perimeter, and in the are there conifers?
Do you want me to share again?
Yeah, I was just looking at your planting palette, and I only saw deciduous trees. Am I missing something, or
Maybe. Let's see.
I saw the Japanese maple and the
I'm gonna skip
ironwood.
So, at the entry here,
Okay.
I have pine, Doug fir. I have
Okay.
Pisces. This is the Serbian spruce.
Okay.
And then all along this edge, you can see we have Doug fir, pine, Doug fir, Serbian spruce. So I've kept it to the edges. You're correct. I don't have them right by the buildings. And that's also about light too, because it is quite dense, these buildings. Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't, for some reason in your palette, the planting palette there, I did not see any, unless I missed it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was looking at your one with the pictures, the photos.
Okay.
I didn't see it. Okay. So that's good. Totally fine.
Yeah.
So aside from that, the amenity area, did you look at anything that would reflect possibly a program for, because these are going to be quite often family houses. Do you look at any sort of program there that would have like playground or anything like that, that for children?
Yes, I did. That's why I have the natural play area. And so, yeah, I'm a strong advocate for children, just providing the opportunities for them to engage with the environment. And so because we're sloped, so we have logs, boulders where they're going to be crisscrossing in the landscape, and just creating the space for them to occupy it in their own way, not a prescribed place.
Yeah, so you didn't want to go.
No.
Yeah, you didn't want to go with an actual like swings or a slide or anything like that.
No, and there's a lot of reasons for that too. Once we start going down that route, we're very limited on all play structures have a spatial requirement, and then they also have a fall surface requirement. And so we're adding all these unnatural materials, and we're taking up more space than I would like to make available. And so then I limit the whole use of the space for a prescribed type of play. But we know we don't need that just for kids to play with. I've done actually extensive research on natural play and how the environment can work with children. That was my thesis in my master's. And so I'm really support what I'm doing. And I think it really supports the kids and creates these opportunities that doesn't give them this designated space. They feel comfortable exploring and participating in all of it. And I think you're going to get better use and out of the land by doing it this way. Yeah.
I just hope the kids adapt to it, because they will have to. They're used to playing on playgrounds. And unfortunately, I'm not sure where the closest playground is to this property, whether it's a park or whatever. There's not one very close, is there?
And no, but I'm not worried about that. Kids are, they love, like, if you, that's not a concern for me.
Okay. Okay. No, I just wanted to check with you, because kids, families that move in there from other neighborhoods that have kids already are used to possibly being close to the playgrounds with actual swings and slides and stuff like that.
And one could argue, like, this is my passion. I just want to say.
I know, Kate. I know.
That's part of our problem. We have to connect children to nature. That's part of, So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I accept your rationale on that.
One comment.
I accept your rationale. Yeah.
Sorry, one comment just to further Kate's rationale there is we are providing an access route through that northern part of the property, phase 2, to connect up with the park on the north side of the land, as well as the elementary school. So there's an elementary school not that far away, and we're providing a pedestrian route through the site to make sure that both our residents as well as the public, it'll be a public route so that it will be a shortcut walking route basically to that school for everyone through our site.
Perfect. No,
There's a
that
playground.
I just wanted to see what the rationale was with that, and I fully accept the rationale. So that's good. That's all I have to say. Very nice project. Well done.
Thanks, Kevin. Hector, would you like to go?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks for the landscape architect and the architect of the project. It's a nice subdivision. I really don't have comments on the form and character. I think it's a good job, and hopefully more families can move to Nanaimo. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Hector. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, most of my comments have already been brought up, so I was happy to see that the weather protection was addressed already. I noticed when you pulled up the slide that you'd already updated your renderings from the submitted package, so that's great. I also had a comment about a playground, particularly in a development with 3-bedroom units. So I'll take your word for it, Kate, that that's been considered. So that's great.
May I please send you some literature? I'm going to.
And I also like the citing of all the buildings. It encourages kind of privacy amongst the various units, and I think it's well done. The only other comment I had was, for as little as I think they're going to be used, kind of distributing the visitor parking, maybe not just in one spot where you have the maximum distance to travel, but if it could be distributed a bit more. Again, I don't think it's going to be incredibly used with driveways at each location. I think visitors will largely be present at each individual unit, but that's my only other comment. So thank you very much, and I think this is a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Great, thanks, Jason. And Hillary?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to see a project that's all like 3 bedrooms and up. I think that's a really huge need. I love the natural play space. I spent a lot of time down at the Maffeo Sutton Park area, and I see a lot of kids just like playing with the wood chips and like jumping off the rocks, and they don't need to like go down the slide to be having a good time. So I think that's kind of a fun approach here. Yeah, likewise, also glad to see the weather protection over the doorways. That's a good thing. I think I'll make a comment that's probably not shared by other people, but just the colors of the buildings, they all read to me like a little bit dark, and I'm like thinking about families living there and kids walking down this, being like, oh yeah, I live in the gray house, and they're like, no, the other gray house. Yeah, I just kind of wish it could be like maybe a little bit more fun, but maybe we're not there yet in terms of like Newfoundland style color. But I think I don't know, maybe we could push it a little bit and swap out one of those like dark gray greens for something a tiny bit more fun. But that's just totally minor, and mainly I'm just excited to see the 3-bedroom development. So yeah, overall, great job. Thank you.
Great, yes, concur with the wonderful project. Good to see some family size homes being built in a really nice looking project. I'd have to agree with Hillary on the color. I'd like to see a little bit, maybe some lighter palette along with the brick or something to just lighten it up. It looks pretty sort of dark and gloomy to me. The design's fine, it's just, yeah. So maybe that's a possibility. I also support Kate's rationale with the playground. I was thinking when I first looked at it, I thought, well, what about little kids? You know, maybe you should have a little swing or something for them. But I realized, in a sense, that playground would be the unsupervised play. And when I was a kid growing up in North Van, we used to go down into the ravines, and I mean, we were running through culverts and sewers, all sorts of things that our parents didn't know we were doing. But at least they're doing it there, and they're jumping around. And I could see the older kids that don't need as much supervision using that space, where everybody in this unit, you're giving them, most of them, a good sized little bit of a yard. If there's a little toddler, they can put in a little slide or swing set in their own area. And I like the idea that I was going to ask you about pathways through the rest of that property, and it looks like it's going to be a beautiful site to have some walkways and access then onto school playgrounds and stuff for the bigger kids that want to have traditional things to play on. But Certainly, I think kids will entertain themselves on what Kate's putting in there. So that's great. And as a final thing, I'm just going to make my usual comment on bike racks. These kind of projects, I know it's not your problem. I'm really happy to see that you've spaced them around the property, not put them down at one end. But I still don't think these things are going to be used. I don't understand why the city insists on you putting bike racks in a project like this, where people are going to ride their bike up to the house, to the door that they want to visit. And if they're worried about security, they're probably going to ask the owner to put their bike in the garage. I wouldn't leave my bike down at the other end and walk up to the house. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't quite understand why the city design guidelines insist on these bike racks. I do understand in an apartment building, but not in a townhouse project like this, or duplexes and single homes. So anyway, I've said my piece. Hopefully somebody will listen one day. Anyway, okay. Let's have a look and see if we've got some recommendations. I've only heard possibly two. First of all, Jason suggested distributing the visitor parking throughout the site if possible. I think that's okay with you, Jason, if that sounds okay. Okay. And both Hillary and I were wondering if you could maybe consider adding some lighter color to your exterior palette, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that probably would be about it. Did I miss anything? Panel? Okay. And there's no variances to worry about. So let's just have a motion then to accept the project as presented, and with those two recommendations. Kevin will make the motion, seconder, Hector, all in favor. Great. Now, did I have you speak, Hillary? Sorry, I did. All of a sudden I looked at you and I thought, oh, I did forget to ask. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Jason and Kate, and good luck with the project. Look forward to seeing it happen. Great.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments and the time, and we'll definitely consider the recommendations. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me plead my case. I have more work to do.
Yes, good to see you again. Okay. We have one last order of business. It wasn't on the agenda, but I just want to mention, applicants can leave if they want. It's for our panel, but just wanted to mention that this is Jason's last meeting. He's been told his time is up. I'd really like to thank Jason for all his work. It's been great. Enjoyed having you on the team here. And I guess we'll have to just wait for AICB to fill his shoes here somehow. So really appreciate your time, Jason.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. It was great to be on the panel, and I hope I get an invite to the holiday dinner.
Oh yes, that would be nice. Put the hint out now. I think you earned it. For sure. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. You did a great job. Sad to see you go. I think I'm not sure if we should start contacting the AIBC like a few months before your time expires. I'm not sure if City does, but quite often it takes quite a while to fill in spots like this, whether it's the landscape architect or the registered architects, and hopefully it doesn't take as long as it did to get Hector on board here. So.
No, because like tonight we're back to just 4 people, and yeah, it's tough when you've got people away for one, and plus I really appreciate having the architects commenting on our projects and having their input, because you guys are all the experts.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure, and it's been really great to kind of give back to the community as well, and kind of help influence the community that we live in, right? So thanks.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, great. I think that's it. Can we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Maybe Jason wants to give you a motion. Seconder, Kevin. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Well, have a good evening, everybody.
Okay.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Jason,
Good night.